a lot of talk about the Niners at 31. What are some outside of the first round players that you think the Niners will actually target?
Yeah, outside of pick 31, is that what you mean?
Correct.
Yeah, I was ready to go on my Zach Frazier rant at 31. So if they don't address the offensive line in the first round, which I think the Niners are a true best player available team, so they might not do that. I look at guys like Blake Fisher from Notre Dame as a right tackle. He started his career on the left side, got hurt. Joe Alt comes in and takes over, but he has shown that ability to be a really good right tackle with very, very good athleticism and could eventually move back to the left side. So if you're starting to think about life after Trent Williams, well, Blake Fisher can play on the right side in the interim. And then, you look at targeting him as someone that could potentially move back to the left side. I think at center, Tanner Bortolini from Wisconsin, who has great agility. I mean, he absolutely dominated at the combine with three cone time. It is the fastest three cone time ever for a center prospect. That fits what the 49ers need. And I do. I look at the right side of that offensive line, center out, are all areas that if I'm in that front office, I would be trying to target as areas that you got to get better at. It's been serviceable, but I think showed up, especially late in the season, as you would like to improve there. And then, on defense, they're always going to be a team that we can talk about defensive line every round. You could say the Niners could go defensive line, certainly. But I look at that third corner spot. You have Travarius Ward, contract's about up. Lenore played well last year. I think it'll be a question of does he play outside or inside moving forward. But I would love to see someone like Andrew Phillips from Kentucky would be a really, really good inside corner for them. Probably in the second round, late second round. If you want to go a little bit deeper, late third round, I'm absolutely in love with Jarvis Brownlee, the corner from Louisville, who had such a great pre-draft process. Really, really good Senior Bowl that showed he has the footwork, he has the toughness to really hang at the line of scrimmage and be that inside corner. So if they look at Lenore and say, or keep you on the outside, either of those guys would be really good ads to be that inside slot corner.
I noticed in your prospect rankings you have Max Melton and you have TJ Tampa back to back. Can you tell me how you got to putting one over the other when they're so closely ranked?
Yeah, it's tough when that happens, and I feel like I do that a lot with position groups of stacking those guys together because it's almost impossible to decide why I like one more than the other. I went with Melton over Tampa just on athletic testing. That was the differentiator for me. I think Melton, the speed is something that you really really like in his game. 4.39 speed. Tampa, we didn't get any athletic testing on in the pre-draft process, at least at the combine. So that was a big decider for me. But I think with Melton, you're getting a little more versatility because he has played inside, he has played outside, good size, good length. He does a really good job of mirroring guys, but also limiting with his hands, kind of disrupting the route tree, if you will, a little bit. But he's instinctive, he's tough. He's been a riser for me and one of those guys where I think I'm at 51 right now. Wouldn't be shocked if he's drafted a little bit ahead of that just because of it feels like even though he was a 4-year starter, it feels like there's still room for him to get better because he is so athletic and we've seen him mature over the course of his career on and off the field. I think that's a great sign of somebody that is still ascending. He played in the slot a lot for Rutgers and again for the Niners. If Lenore's playing on the outside, Melton would be an ideal fit on the inside for him.
Roger Rosengarden has gotten a lot of attention based on the fact that obviously all those pass blocking snaps, no sacks allowed
Mm-hmm.
at Washington, and the fact that he has ties to Ed McCaffrey, Joe Staley's working with him. What's your sense of the fit for Rosengarden as a 49er?
Yeah, really good fit, especially being that the fact that he was a right tackle that had to protect the blind side. I love that. 2-year starter since DeVore got there. He started every game. He's incredibly physical. I think the questions would be, as an athlete, I thought he tested better than he played as an athlete. The testing numbers were really really good, but I didn't think he always played with super fluid hips or feet, which would worry me a little bit just in the Niners zone scheme. But um, they've certainly spent a lot of time there. I think when you show up for a spring game and work a player out after the fact, that says there's some real interest there. The Michigan game was a concern for me, but it was, I mean, for the entire Washington offensive line or the entire everyone outside of their wide receivers, for Washington, that's the game that you look back at and it worries you a little bit. But I know our guy Mel has connected the Niners to Rosengarten multiple times, even before this interest was leaked. So I think there's definitely something real to that. I would feel a lot better about him in the third round than I would the first or even the second, depending on where the run happens with offensive tackles. But if you draft him, I think his experience, like you said, a ton of pass protection snaps, great production in that regard. I think he's someone that could be a rookie starter at right tackle, which again goes huge need for San Francisco to figure out the right side of this offensive line.
Do you believe the 49ers are in a position to draft someone like Patrick Paul and kind of wait on him a little bit to develop?
I yes, because they went to the Super Bowl last year with this offensive line, so you could do that. I think there would be the problem with that is when you draft someone in the late first round or second round, and if your offensive line struggles, there's gonna be a lot of calls from the media to get that guy on the field, and so that kind of becomes the hard part. If you take someone early at a position that's going to struggle, there are going to be the calls to, hey, let's get this guy on the field. Where's he at? Where's he at? And I think for the Niners, that's something they've had to deal with some of these second and third round picks that haven't panned out. Is you're drafting guys to develop and they don't develop. You know, then you've got a Danny Gray on the roster when you would love to have now a year 3 wide receiver in the pipeline just in case a Brandon Aiyuk contract situation happens. So I think that's the key with someone like Paul is you got to be convicted about your plan for him, because the second that Colton McKivitz struggles, people are going to be asking, where's the first round pick? Why isn't he out on the field?
What's your sense on Brandon Aiyuk and draft day a trade? I feel like 20 is the cutoff point with the Steelers, where I feel like he would be moved in the first round. What's your sense of what's going to happen?
Yeah, I don't have any inside information on that one. I think they're playing it pretty close to the vest. I check his agent's Twitter just like everyone else to see what they're saying day by day. It does feel like that. If you're going to get this year, if you're going to get a 2024 first round pick, I think the Steelers are probably where that conversation starts. I would be shocked to see any other team in the top 20 get involved just based on how great this receiver class is, to where, yes, there's the unknown with drafting a receiver, but there's a huge price difference, as we were just discussing. With Ayuk's going to want north of $25 million a year, probably. Drafting someone in the 20s is a bargain if you get Justin Jefferson type production from them, maybe, or even Chris Olave production is a great value if you can get someone in the 20s. So I think Pittsburgh has been heavily rumored. I think you have to look at Buffalo in there as well. From a salary standpoint, I'm not entirely sure if they can make that work, but I think you have to consider them as another team that they really need a wide receiver. What are they going to do? What are they going to wait at 28 and try to get someone they can bring along? We've seen this before with them, where they trade a first round pick for Stephon Diggs. That worked out well for them, but that first round pick became Justin Jefferson. So they might be a little burnt on that, because I promise you they would rather have Justin Jefferson today than have made that trade and now Diggs be in Houston. So I do think 20 is probably where you start to see if something's going to happen. But if you're San Francisco, you also want to see who's on the board. So there's definitely incentive to wait and see who's on the clock before you make that trade.
Yeah, and one more quick question. What do you think of Jaylen McMillan in the 90s to pair with Brandon Aiyuk if he's not traded?
Yeah, no, that would be fantastic. McMillan showed he has that vertical stretch ability. He came up so big for them this past year at times. So I would absolutely love that. He doesn't quite fit the mold. It feels like for a while they were trying to go with these almost like bullies at wide receiver, all these thicker bodies, even with Jawan Jennings. So he would be outside that mold, but he would also give them, that vertical stretch opposite Aiyuk that I think they could definitely use.